Year 6, this is your maths lesson for Monday the 1st of February, and today we're going to be comparing fractions of amounts. Now I'll just go through some of the vocab. Numerator and denominator, you're probably very familiar with those now. Equivalent fractions. Lowest common denominator, we've talked about denominators and lowest common denominators when we have compared and written equivalent fractions. I've also got less than and the symbol that goes with it, greater than and the symbol that goes with it, and equal to. Now this is really a sort of a revision lesson, but hopefully you will enjoy it. Okay, so we're going to be doing some work. We've called it Would You Rather. Okay, now I've got several different worksheets which will appear at the end of the video, but I thought I'd just run through an example. So if I just turn the board over, now I have got one actually with a chocolate bar on. It's there, almost identical. Okay, so of the chocolate bar, we've got different amounts. Would you rather a half or a fifth or a tenth or a fifth? Okay, now this is the example that I thought I would just model for you. So my question is, would you rather have a half of this chocolate bar or 4/10 of this chocolate bar? Now probably the easiest way to do this is just to look at the equivalent fractions. So this is where the revision comes in. So a little reminder for you, I've got a half or 4/10. Now if you remember back a couple of weeks ago, when I want to write an equivalent fraction, I need to have a common denominator, and that just means I need to make my denominators the same. It's quite difficult to compare them at the moment because my denominators are different. So let's have a little look. I've got a 2 and I've got a 10 as my denominators. Now can you think of a number that's in the 2 times table? So it's a multiple of 2 and a multiple of 10. Well, I'm sure you're saying this to me. It is 10, which is really good because actually I can just leave this one as it is. It's already in tenths. So I've found a common denominator. I can make this into tenths by writing an equivalent fraction. So here we go. Remember, whatever you do to the bottom, to the denominator, I have to do exactly the same to the top. So I'm going to think 2 times what is 10? Well, 2 times 5 is 10. So I'm going to do the same to my numerator. I'm going to multiply it by 5, and that will give me 5/10. So a half is equivalent to 5/10. So now you can quite easily see that 5/10 or a half is a larger amount than 4/10. All right, so probably if you're anything like me, you would want to have the larger amount of this chocolate bar, and so therefore I would put this symbol in. A half, remember the crocodile's mouth is going to eat the bigger fraction, is greater than 4/10. So one way that you can compare these fractions of amounts is just to make both fractions have the same denominator. Sometimes you'll hear it called the lowest common denominator, or just a common denominator. Make them the same, and then you can easily see which piece is going to be bigger. All right, so a half or 4/10, yes please, I would like a half. Okay, another way you could do this is by working out fractions of amounts. You don't really need to with some of the questions that I have given you, but you could, if I just run through that very quickly, this is what we would have been doing most recently, okay, the fractions of amounts. So if I look at this chocolate bar, it's 200 grams. So I could, if I just wanted to check it, I could do, what's bigger? A half of 200 grams. Well, hopefully you can just do that in your head. It's going to be 100 grams. Okay, and I'll model the next bit, or 4/10 of 200 grams. Now let's just see. Remember, I've got to find 1/10 first of all, and I can do that by dividing the number by 10. So 1/10 is the same as dividing the number, the whole amount, 200 grams, by 10. So let's have a little look. Oh, sorry, I wrote 100 there. Let's rub that out. By dividing by 10. So I'm going to do, how many times does 10 go into 200? I know that some of you will just be able to do this in your head, but just in case you can't. 10 into 2, well, that doesn't go. Can put a 0 there if you want to. I'm not going to bother. 10 into 20 goes twice. 10 into 0 doesn't go. So 1/10 is 20 grams, but I want 4 of them. So remember, 4 lots of 20 grams. And a quick way, 4 times 2, well, that's 8. I've got to make it 10 times bigger. 80 grams, or you could just count in 20s, 20, 40, 60, 80. Okay. Now, if you want to, you can double check your work by finding the fraction of the amount, or you could just practice, again, finding the equivalent fractions like I did first of all, okay? So there's a few sheets for you to have a go at. Okay, if you were feeling quite confident with that, you could maybe have a go at these questions. They're slightly harder. Now, you can see here, I've got a couple of bottles of juice. You can probably see straight away that they are different sizes. Now, the fractions I've chosen for would you rather have 3/10 of this juice or 2/5 of this juice? Now, obviously, you're going to have to put aside which one you might prefer. We're just trying to sort of think about the amount. So this one, 3/10, I'm going to write that down. And this one, 2/5. Now you could think, oh, well, I will just find an equivalent fraction. Okay, now if I was doing that, look for your lowest common denominator. Okay, right, well, I can make this into tenths. Okay, and obviously 5 times 2, so I've multiplied that denominator by 2. I've got to do the same to the numerator. 2 times 2 is 4. Now you might just think, okay, I'm going to get more of this one, so I'll have the peach and raspberry juice. But actually, you need to have a little look at how many millilitres they are. Now this one, oops, it's on its side there, is actually 1.5 litres. So I've got to remember that because it is going to affect everything. So this one is actually 1.5 litres. And this one, I happen to know, is 1 litre. So you can see I've got different amounts here. So if I'm going to compare them, I've got to bear that in mind. Now, 1.5 litres, I'm going to jot this down because I think I might need this, is 1,500 millilitres, and 1 litre is 1,000 millilitres. Okay, you might remember that from when we did measures. So I've got to find 3/10 of 1,500 millilitres. Well, I'm going to start by finding 1/10. So 1/10 is the same as dividing by 10. And you probably can do that in your head. 1/10 of 1,500 is 150 millilitres. But remember, I didn't want 1/10, I wanted 3/10, so I now have to multiply this 150 by 3. I need 3 lots of the 150 millilitres, and that comes to 450 millilitres. I'm sure that you will be able to do this in your head, but remember, if you can't, you can set out a calculation. So we were doing 150 times 3. I won't do it, but that's how you could set it out. This one now, okay, I need 2/5 of 1,000, or I could do the 4/10 of 1,000. It doesn't really matter. We know they're equivalent fractions, okay? I'll do the 2/5, I think. So first of all, I'm going to find 1/5. So I've got to divide by 5. Okay, so I'm doing 5 into 1,000. Okay, and 5 into 1 doesn't go. 5 into 10 goes twice, and obviously 0, 0. So 1/5 is 200, but remember I wanted 2 of them, which will therefore be 2 lots of 200 millilitres, which is 400 millilitres. So you can see that actually the bigger amount, the bigger fraction of the whole amount is this one here. It's 450. The bigger amount that you get in millilitres is the blackcurrant. Okay, so with the questions that I've set for you, you'll need to think about that. You can't actually just do it, just with equivalent fractions. You are going to have to calculate the fraction of each quantity. All right, so you're going to have a little look at those. Again, these will be on the video at the end. Okay, so I don't like Harry and Ginny to feel left out, and I want to see how hard they've been concentrating in these lessons. So I've got a little question for them. Okay, so would they like 3/4 of this bag of treats, or would they prefer 3/10 of this bag of treats? Okay, now sadly for them, these bags weigh different amounts. So this bag weighs 60 grams and this bag weighs 150 grams. So they're, oh dear, Ginny's a bit bored. They can't just do it by finding equivalent fractions. We've actually got to calculate the fraction of the amount. Okay, so 3/4 of 60. So I've got to find 1/4 first of all. So 1/4, livened up again. 1/4 of 60, well, it's the same as dividing 60 by 4. And I wonder, Ginny, can you remember a quick way of dividing a number by 4 or finding 1/4 of a number? I'm just going to ask her. Yep. You can halve and halve again. Well done, Ginny. Okay, so half of 60 is 30 and half of 30 is 15. So 1/4 is 15, but I wanted 3/4. So 3 lots of 15 grams will be 45 grams. So if they had 3/4 of this bag, they would get 45 grams. Let's try this one, okay? 3/10. Okay. Harry, I wonder if you can remember, how do you find a tenth of a number or a quantity? In this case, 150 grams. I'm just going to ask Harry. Yep, he thinks that you divide by 10. He's correct. So 150 divided by 10, or 1/10 of 150. I'm going to do 150 divided by 10, well, I'm sure you can probably just do that in your heads. Remember, a quick way of doing that, it's going to be 15. 15 grams. Okay, now I want 3 lots of the 15. I didn't want 1/10, I wanted 3. So 3 times 15 grams is 45 grams. Well, that's interesting. So I have to tell you both, it doesn't really make any difference for this because you will get the same amount, okay? The fractions might not be equivalent, but the amounts that you get here would be from the fraction of the quantity that is in here. Oops. So, Ginny and Harry, you have been excellent pupils, I think. So I might just give you a little treat. Let's have a little look. There we go. Well done. See you soon, Year 6.